my dears, how's it going? We're doing a Q&A today. It's going to be chill and wholly unscripted, so that's always a good sign when it comes to me. For friends who need it, I am a white young person sitting in front of a plain wall that has green leaves on it, and I'm wearing a black t-shirt with a navy blue open button-up thing on top and a necklace. You can't see the necklace, that doesn't matter, and I have slightly longer than shoulder length curly brown hair. So, Q&A is what we're doing today. There are 5 Saturdays in November, which means I had to make 4 videos because I do 1 week off, and I was like, no, that's actually not happening with the way that my life and my workload is going right now. So I decided to do a Q&A. I thought it'd be fun, thought it'd be chill. So I got a bunch of questions from y'all on my Instagram, which if you don't already follow me, you're super welcome to. My account is called @DisabledAutisticLesbian because I'm creative. And on there you can find the occasional Q&A that, just kidding, I haven't done one of these in a year and a half, if not more than that. But you can find, the occasional life update, I guess. You can find all of my Access reviews when I publish those on there for shows, if that's helpful at all. All my reels. I'm honestly the most active on Instagram as I am on any of the social media platforms that I'm on, so you should follow me if you want to, but also no pressure, you really don't have to. Social media is terrible and I hate it, even though it's my job. Yeah, that's all that I have to say. Why am I wearing shoes? I'm wearing shoes. That's fine. We're rolling with it. Also, my bench thing is really squeaky, and that's also just a thing that we're gonna roll with. And I know that there was a dead pixel on my camera. Thank you to everybody who keeps commenting that. That's not gonna get fixed anytime soon. Sorry. Anywho, we're gonna do questions. I kind of organized them into categories-ish. So first category is like the short answer, and then we get into like career life stuff, and then life advice. So that's how this is gonna roll. And hopefully I will use my time wisely, but you never know with an unscripted video. They go in so many directions. Also, if you want to like, comment, subscribe, you do you, bestie. You're welcome to join. I also have a Patreon that you're welcome to join if you so desire, but I also know that like money's tight for everybody right now, so super real if you can't. But that does exist. Okay, I'm done with all the things. Let's do questions. Favorite show that you've ever seen live and why? I am one of those people who gets very overwhelmed by the concepts of favorites because I do not have any object permanence, and thus everything that I like is my favorite in that precise moment. So all of the questions about favorites are going to be answers that are not technically my favorite, but they're adjacent to that. So in this case, the show I've seen live recently that I've been thinking about the most, that has been sitting on my mind, I saw the Jellicle ballroom version of Cats at the New York Performing Arts Center. I think that's where it was. A few months ago, and I'm still thinking about it. It was the coolest thing. I'm not a Cats fan. I'm not majorly a Weber fan. But they revitalized it in a way that made it work. And I was like, I am offended that this is good and I'm having a fantastic time. It was just so well done and so culturally important and so cool and so interactive and just something that I will probably never forget for the rest of my life. So I don't think it's my favorite, but it was definitely an experience. My theater things, I really like a show that is tight, and I like a show that is an experience that gets me thinking, that gets me processing stuff. I saw Yellowface the other day, and that is such interesting commentary on identity politics that I really liked. Like shows that get my brain going, I usually enjoy. I'm a big, also a historical fiction guy, so like that kind of stuff. Yeah, that didn't answer your question. Great, good talk. Next one, favorite animals. Again, favorites, no. I recently learned what a stoat is, and they're very fun. I'll put one on the screen for you. They're like a little weaselly kind of ferrety creature. They're really cute. I also really like the famous hippo that everybody's, Mudang, that's her name? I love her. She's great. I enjoy her. Yeah, great. Favorite theater characters. I don't know, man. I really like Milky Way from Into the Woods. Great, moving on. If you had to pick a favorite review that you've done, what is it? This one I have an answer to. Get a Life, Chloe Brown is a book that I read last summer because while I was packing up my dorm room, then it was a full summer and a half. Horrible. We're in November now. 2 summers ago. I was packing up my dorm room and I found a gift card to my college bookstore that I hadn't used yet, that I guess I'd like gotten years prior, and I just like had it laying somewhere, and I found it and I was like, what do I spend it on? And my friends were like, you've had the worst semester of your life and I need you to read something fun. And so they convinced me to spend it on romance novels, and I was like, I'm not gonna read a romance novel. And they were like, well, there's some disability related romance novels, you can read those because then you can review them. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll agree to that. And so I bought a bunch of disability romance novels, and Get a Life Chloe Brown was the first one that I read, and it completely changed my mind around the genre as a whole, and now romance novels are like my go-to. Like, I read them all the time. I love them. They're so like predictable but not predictable, and fun and light and just a good time, and like also helps to like unpack some stuff in a healthy way if you read the right romance novels. So that one would probably be my favorite because it opened up a whole new genre for me that I wouldn't normally have picked up. So that one. Is that my favorite thing that I've reviewed in the sense of like watched or whatever that like brought me the most joy? I don't even know. Do you listen to music while you work? If so, what is your go-to? Yes and no. I usually will listen to music at the beginning if I'm having a hard time focusing, or if I'm sitting at Pearl Studios during an audition and trying to write a video. You will find me, if you're an auditioner in New York City, you might find me sitting there sometimes just like typing away. It's usually when I get my writing done. So if I'm in that situation where I like need to block out noise around me to focus or something like that, I will listen to music. If I'm just at home in my apartment, I will usually not listen to music because I focus better when I'm not doing that. So basically I listen to music if I need to cancel out another auditory input. Otherwise I don't. Go-tos. I listen to a lot of the music that they use as background music in Critical Role. Because my friend put it all into a playlist for me. I listen to that a lot, so I don't know what that actually is. To find that for you, that's not gonna be super helpful. I also really like the Book Thief soundtrack, like the John Williams Book Thief soundtrack. It's really good study music as well. Huge fan of that. So like that kind of stuff. But don't listen, in my experience at least, I don't like to listen to anything that's really heavy on beat or really like, you know, we're going on an adventure kind of stuff, because that gets my heart rate up and that's harder. So I usually more just like chill fantasy, piano, strings, just kind of vibey. Thomas Newman might be his name. He wrote the soundtrack to He Named Me Malala. He wrote the soundtrack to Finding Dory. His music is also really good study stuff. So if you need that, that would be my recommendation. How long do media reviews take you? Longer than I would like. I will be, we'll talk about this in the live update situation, but I'm going to be paring these down starting in the new year and doing significantly less because it's a lot. The amount of time that I watch everything usually takes me like 2 full days of time to watch everything. That's not the end of the world. Like, I'll often intersperse it throughout the month if I can and be like, oh, I'm gonna take some time off and then watch something to review. The writing of the reviews usually takes an extra like 20-ish minutes after I finish whatever I finish, but my procrastination is really strong because I'm like, but I just watched a movie. I don't want to write something. That has never computed in my brain for some reason. So I'm always like, oh, I don't want to write the review. Like, that's the point of why. Anyway, so that takes a significant amount of time. The thing that takes the bigger amount of time actually is the editing. Well, the filming of all of them takes about an hour, hour and a half, maybe. And then the camera's really hard to set up, and like the angle and whatever, it's very difficult. And then captioning takes a godforsaken amount of time. And I double caption them because I got YouTube comments a while ago that people wanted the YouTube specific captions because then they have control over them, and I was like, super real. But because of how the captioning works on the Instagram app, which is where I caption them, I cannot export that as an STL file to then put into SRT. It's an SRT file. STL is for 3D printers. As an SRT file to put into YouTube. So I have to caption them twice functionally. And that's like at the end of the day, like 20 different files that I'm captioning and editing several times. And it's just like such a process. So overall, if I were to say like in work days worth of time, working 9 to 5, I would say it probably takes me about 4, maybe 5 days, probably about 4 days to do all of my reviews for a month, which is a lot of time. And it's not my favorite. I mean, a lot of that time is like, you know, I'm gonna play Candy Crush or work on a painting while I'm doing my reviews. So like, it's not the end of the world, but it definitely is more time consuming than I would like it to be. But that's okay. It's an experience. It's a thing that I do. I also will often pick up things for fun and then have them accidentally turn into reviews. I'm reading a book right now that I picked up for fun. It's about the Code Breakers at Bletchley Park. Super good. And I picked it up on like page 3. They were like, and this character is in an insane asylum. And I was like, oh, great, I can review that. So like sometimes that happens and that's really great. And then I can kill 2 birds with one stone. I'm like enjoying myself and doing that. But that's not my favorite. I'm gonna do December as a huge chunk, and then I'm gonna start to work in advance a little bit more and just have them sitting around so it's less of a chunk of time at once, but it's still a lot of time. That was a longer answer than you needed, but there you go. Thoughts on media representation of higher support needs autistics being shunned as stereotypical by lower support needs autists, and how that's actually hurting those with medium and high support needs who present more stereotypically. I think that we have lost the concept of what a stereotype is my not so hot take. When I'm looking at media to review, and this has changed over time. So if you've seen my earlier reviews, you may say Cynthia doesn't line up, and that is super fair and true. And I kind of want to redo some of my earlier reviews at some point because I just have a different concept of media now than I did. But I think a lot of well-meaning advocates who do not have experience in the media analysis sphere, in the dramaturgy sphere, in the English literature sphere, those kinds of things, that minority media, whatever, are very used to those saying like, oh, it's a white boy who likes trains and he stims this way, that's a stereotype, therefore it's bad. And I think we're missing the wider nuance of why that might be good or bad. For example, Curious Incident, right? People complain about Curious Incident all the time. I will defend Curious Incident till the end of time because it created that stereotype. It is the reason for that stereotype, and he's based on real autistic people. So for me, I think that's perfectly fine representation. Are there some issues? Maybe, but it's hard for me to completely understand where those issues are coming from because it is the first of its kind. And so I can't necessarily critique it through a modern lens because of when it was published, right? Like that's not a thing that people are talking about when they talk about stereotypes. The recent movie that came out, Ezra, isn't bad if the year were 2005, but it's a real problem because it's 2024, right? So that's a thing that a lot of people aren't taking into account. For me, I'm critiquing the narrative of the piece, not the character. If you critique the character, you're gonna have a problem because all characters exist in all stereotypes all of the time. All of our stereotypes exist in binaries. So for an example about like feminism, right? You have the girl who's really, really into the color pink and she's really, really into fashion. Or you have the girl who's like, I hate pink and I'm nerdy and I like to do math. Those are both stereotypes separately. And so no matter what you do, you're going to fall into one or the other to some degree, and you cannot avoid them because they are all and ever present. And so this idea that we're constantly critiquing this character for being stereotypical isn't fair because they're going to be. All characters are going to fall into stereotypes. We have tropes for a reason. We have archetypes for a reason. We create media in the image of other media. It's always going to be stereotypical. The issue is not the stereotype. The issue is the narrative. Does this character exist to tell you that disabled lives are horrible? Does this character exist to prop up the narrative of somebody else and be an inspiration porn? Why is this character here? That's what I pay attention to. That's what I'm critiquing. And so I'm very with this question in regards to like how people are criticizing media for being stereotypical and how that actually hurts people with medium to high support needs. I would agree. But I think that is less the media's fault and more the people making opinions on media that don't necessarily know about media. Or about what we should technically be looking at within media and critiquing within media and changing within media, because the narratives are the problem, not the characters, the vast majority of the time. And if it's the character that's the issue, it's usually because it's a non-autistic person playing an autistic character and or the writing room did a terrible job. But then that again is narrative. It's not the character itself. Usually, like, critiques of The Good Doctor are not, oh, this character is bad. They're usually, oh, why did the writing room do that? So I think it's important that we are cognizant of what we're actually critiquing when it comes to media and what that actually means. And I think that's just along the whole media literacy is a hot mess in society right now conversation. But unfortunately, I mean, people in the community are allowed to have opinions about media that is representative of our community, and they're super welcome to do that. And we live in a society where all of us can put that on the internet, and that's totally fine. And, you know, I count myself into this, right? Like, I started advocacy before I should have. I was not ready. I did not know enough about our community, and I started talking anyway. And I shouldn't have done that. So, like, I get it. I understand it. But I also think that's doing more harm than good to some degree. And I think we're having conversations with the community a lot lately about this, about how we're more focused on autism advocacy as relatability as opposed to factual information sharing, and how that has become a problem. I frankly, it was always kind of a problem. So I think this is kind of in line with that. I don't know if that answered that question, but you're right, basically. The next question, I wasn't taking any will you review this thing or that thing because that goes into a Google form, but this one's actually a conversation, so I figured I would put it in here. By the way, my reviews Google form has over 1,000 things for me to review in there. Like, I need you to know how horrifyingly large that document is. It's very scary. I will never get to the end of it, and that's okay. Somebody asked me about the Wicked movie, and whether I was going to review it and whether I had thoughts on it, and I wanted to talk about that one. I'm not planning on seeing the Wicked movie anytime soon. So I will not be reviewing the disability representation in it. I'm sure that it's going to be better than the original because they have an actually disabled actor in it. And that is nothing against the Wicked movie at all whatsoever. But I'm doing some adjacent research right now, and I think seeing the movie will probably interfere with that research, and I do not want to interfere with said research until it is done and published. So I will watch the movie in 5+ years. Probably is the timeline. So yes, I'm aware that it exists. Please don't request it a lot because it's just not going to happen for a period of time because I want to keep my knowledge of what Wicked is very specific to the stage version of it as it currently stands, so that I can, yeah. Next question is, if you could be in / work on / direct any musical, what would you choose? I don't know if it's gonna come out in November or if I'm gonna swap it with something else, but I've been researching Newsies and I've just fallen in love with that show again, and I have a lot of opinions on that show, apparently. I didn't realize I had a lot of opinions on Newsies, but I have a lot of opinions on Newsies. So I would love to be involved in that. I'm gonna be more specific. The West End version of Newsies, there's a reveal. Spoiler alert, you can skip ahead if you want. But spoiler alert, basically when Brooklyn shows up at the, near the end of the show to, save the day because everybody's scared of Brooklyn, but then they finally agree to come and then all the rest of the Newsies come. The leader of the Brooklyn Newsies, Spot Conlon, is a girl and all the rest of them are girls. All of Brooklyn is girls. So the whole bit through the entire show is oh, we're scared of Brooklyn, they're so scary. And then they all show up and they're all girlsies. And you're like, I love this. So, I would love to be gender bent Spot Conlon if anybody wants me to do that. I will not be directing anything anytime soon or probably ever again. I don't like directing. I never have. I did it for political purposes, but I do not intend to do it again. Yeah, I would love to be in Newsies. I would also love to dramaturg a production of Newsies, frankly. But yeah, I guess that's my answer for right now. How can you tell if a show is adjusted lighting for a person's needs? Watching Steven on Dancing with the Stars, it's hard to see if they adjusted lighting for him. I don't think you need to tell whether it has been adjusted for a person's needs or whether that's just a directing choice that was made. I can tell you that I can tell, but only if it's A, because I know somebody in the cast and crew, or B, if it's a director that I've spoken to, and then sometimes I'll see their shows after I've spoken to them, and they will be more accessible through lighting design than they were before I had spoken with them. So I know that that is a thing that does happen sometimes. But otherwise, you shouldn't be able to tell. I think that's the number one thing. You just should not be able to tell. There are shows that are perfectly accessibly lit in ways that was not intentional, or it was intentional. But yeah, you shouldn't be able to tell. It doesn't really matter that much. I mean, it does matter if it's oh, I've advocated for that and it happened. That's really cool. But otherwise, who cares? Doesn't really matter. Yeah. I think we should just be adjusting lighting in general for general needs. We don't need strobe lights and things. Why are they there? They don't need to be there. Super unnecessary. The next question is, what are you up to at the moment? Interpret this however. Yeah, let's talk about my life and what's been going on. Somebody else said, how has your understanding of your own disabilities changed over the past few years? Life update, those kinds of questions. What a great question. What have I been up to? You may have noticed, if you've been quite the follower for quite some time, that I don't really talk about personal stuff on here anymore. Very much. And I like that. I really do. I've kind of become I will only talk about personal stuff if it's directly related to the pedagogy at hand, and not really anything beyond that. I used to be more of a lifestyle kind of person, but I live in chaos all the time. I'm one of those people right now who's very busy all the time, but cannot tell you what I'm busy with because I genuinely don't know. And yeah, I think kind of to answer the question about how my understanding my disability has changed, and I guess that ties into my life updates, is that after however many months I've been living in the city for just over a year, but I think maybe like 6 or 7 months in, I was able to get all of my medical shit sorted, and effectively don't get sick anymore, like at all. So it has been interesting. My latest journey, I guess, has been learning how to no longer stop doing everything because I'm afraid it's going to make me sick. Because there were a lot of times in the past where like something has happened and I've gotten sick afterwards, and I've been like, oh, that caused that, and just stop doing that thing entirely. Because when you're in crisis mode and you're trying to just feel better, that's totally reasonable. But I've been trying to slowly add more things back into my life and get my tolerances higher, and do a better job at managing like anxiety and all that kind of stuff. And slowly adding some foods back into my diet that used to make me quite ill that now don't. So I've been exhausted a lot because I'm just doing so many things. I also have been doing like minimum 1 to 2 scary things per week. The things that scare me, I'm going to do them, and it's great. But it has just completely kind of changed how I live my life. And I've also found that because of that, because I'm feeling better, disability doesn't feel as much as a central piece of my life. In like every thought that I have all the time used to be disability related, and now it kind of only comes up when I'm doing work. So like for me, disability has sort of just become like a background thing about my life, in the same way that being queer has always just been a background thing about my life that I don't think about very often. It's just kind of there and it's a thing about me. And disability has kind of become that for me as well. And so it feels more like disability is my job. Researching disability is my job. And thus, like, you know, I used to do a lot of lifestyle stuff because it related to disability, because I was helping other people with things that I struggled with when I was younger. But now I feel like that is no longer really applicable to how I live my life. And I also just like, I'm in a place where I enjoy having an online community. I enjoy also, it's great for networking purposes, obviously. But I'm in a place where I don't feel like I need that to survive in a way that I did when I started this career. And so, as I've been working out a new work-life balance and really getting to figure out what that looks like and figuring out what my new life looks like, I've been like, I don't really need to be as personal anymore. I enjoy being an academic. I think that's fun. So that's what I've been primarily focusing on here. Which has been great, but also it means that my videos are a lot more energy and effort to go into them because I have to research things so much, which is kind of, I've already been paring down. I went down to the 3 videos a month a few months ago. I'm going to be going down to 2 in January, probably going forward, and then I'll do 6 reviews a month instead of 9, just because I'm busy and I'm tired, and I need to be able to have more time to take time off than I have right now, particularly as I'm doing more and more things. I've been quite busy. But yeah, so that's kind of, I guess, the way that my viewing of and experience of my disability has changed over the past couple of years, which I think is very apparent in my content, but I could be totally wrong about that. I feel like I have the disability life stuff more or less sorted, and now I'm dealing with the regular life stuff that I just kind of pushed off to the side for much of my life because I was dealing with a crisis. And now that I've dealt with that, I'm now learning how to do like the regular life things that A, aren't super interesting, B, me talking through them on the internet feels a little too personal and also is probably unhelpful because it's not specific to a certain identity or whatever that I have. It's just like, I'm just dealing with regular life things, and that's been fun and scary and all of those things. But yeah, so that's kind of why a lot of my personal stuff has sort of disappeared. I don't feel, I've left most everything up from when I was more personal. I've been slowly taking the occasional video down that I just don't feel like is necessary anymore, or I've been cutting out pieces of videos that I've just like remembered that was a thing that I said. Maybe I didn't want that on the internet, you know? And I think it's important to grow and change and learn and all of that kind of stuff. And I'm glad that I've gotten the chance to do that on the internet. I'm glad that I've done it in a way that has helped other people. But I definitely am finding myself pivoting more towards keeping my life as my thing, that I kind of keep to the side and a little bit hidden, and I am more specific about curating what I put out into the world, and being more of an academic, because I like looking at the world academically or through the arts. You'll see more of arts specific stuff as I do more of that, but I've been doing a lot of academic work behind the scenes, and I'm trying to pare that down a little bit so I can really afford to take more time to do the other art stuff. I had a jaw tick for quite some time that caused issues here, and I was in PT for a bit to fix that so I can sing in a way that's a lot healthier for my body, because I'm very sensitive, particularly in head region with the migraines. So like I've been working really hard on a lot of art stuff behind the scenes that will come in front of the scenes one day, but doesn't need to right now. So yeah, basically I've become boring. And so that's kind of, my life has become a lot more interesting for me and a lot more boring for everybody else. So I kind of just keep that to myself, and kind of starting to separate what work is from what my life is, and keeping those as different pieces of who I am and how I interact with the world. And I think that's important, and I think that that's healthy, and I'm proud of myself for being where I am. Because it's been a journey, but yeah, that's my life update of sorts. Somebody also asked if I have any new hyperfixations of late. The answer would be no. I do not. I really have not gotten down many rabbit holes lately of things that are super interesting to me, because I've been busy. But that's okay, because I like being busy. I've crafted a life for myself right now where I am busy with a lot of very, very different things at once that all sort of feed into each other, but not entirely. And so I'm no longer just being like, I made a deadline and now I need to meet it and I'm stressed and that's why I'm doing this thing. And instead I'm just like, this interests me and now I'm tired of that and now this interests me and now I'm tired of that and now this interests me. And I've been really able to just do a lot of things and just be happy and exist and go outside a lot and I've been exercising more, and yeah, I think you can probably tell just by the energy of this video I'm a lot chiller and calmer than I used to be. But yeah, that's my little life update for you. The next questions are career related. I'm doing so terribly on time. This is atrocious. I'm so sorry. Life of being a dramaturg and what that means to you, because this person might want to start pursuing it and they want to learn. I'll just do all the dramaturgy questions at once. What is it like being an autistic dramaturg versus an allistic one? What unique insights do you have? Where do you suggest an aspiring dramaturg start? What great questions that I have the worst possible answers for you, my friends. I became a dramaturg by accident. I did dramaturgical research for Curious Incident, and I did not know what the word dramaturgy was. I did do the research. I published it on the internet. I didn't know that that was what I was doing. I then did analysis of Richard III over the summer that, again, did not know I was doing dramaturgy, but I did analysis of it anyway. I also had one of Kimberly Akimbo. That one is no longer on the internet. I'm making a new one. Those three existed on the internet. After Curious fell apart, a lot of people reached out to me and I got to like have coffee with a lot of people. I got to meet a lot of people, and one of those people that I had coffee with suggested me for a dramaturgical. They were looking for a disability specific dramaturg for something. He suggested me to them, and then they reached out to me and they were like, hey, would you like to job? And I was like, I don't know, but it's a job in theater, so I'm gonna just say yes. And so I said yes, and then I met with all these people and I was like, so I don't know what dramaturgy is, but I've been doing disability historical media research for some time. And they were like, well, that's what it is. And I was like, oh, okay, great. So I got the job, I took the job, and I went in full trial by fire, which is very on brand for me, I feel. And it was great, and it was one of the coolest things I've ever done, and I loved it, and I was like, great, I want to do this forever. Do I want to do it as the only thing I ever do forever? Absolutely not, but I do want to do this forever. And so yeah, and then from there, I just keep getting recommended for other stuff. So I think the lesson to be learned is if people reach out and if you reach out to other people to like have coffee to pick their brains about something, do it, because that can turn into random things. I have a whole career now that I didn't expect to have because I had coffee with somebody. So yeah, life of being a dramaturg in general. I mean, I spend a lot of my time doing like prep dramaturgy work, like these videos that I make. I hope to dramaturg these productions in person at some point somewhere one day, right? But right now I'm making it as public information because I want particularly high schools that are doing these productions to have access to that information for free, because high schools don't have dramaturgy programs. So that's kind of why I'm doing that. I think it's important, and I think having these conversations is important, and I'm making them shareable. And then, I've gotten people will reach out and be like, hey, we're doing this so-and-so show. Can I ask you some questions about it? Can we pay you for dramaturgical stuff from a distance? Like, I've done that before. So it's just as freelance as any other artistic position is, like much like a director, much like a choreographer. Like it's just as freelance and just as random. People don't usually post that they want dramaturg jobs, so it is very much just like somebody knows somebody and you just kind of get pulled into something. But basically, the best way to describe what it's like to be a dramaturg in the room is, how like an editor helps a writer create a piece, right? A dramaturg is much like that. That's kind of how we function in a space, which some directors don't want, so we don't end up on a lot of projects for that reason. But yeah, so where to start? Learn stuff, be interested, talk to other dramaturgs, shoot your shot. I don't know. I'm sorry. I'm so unhelpful with that. In regards to the difference between being an autistic dramaturg and an allistic one, I have no idea. I've never been an allistic dramaturg. But I would imagine, I look at the world differently, period. That's just how I function. I also look at the world, particularly theatrical spaces, through accessibility and what an accessible theatrical space could look like. That's the lens that I have. So I will often in spaces speak up for that, speak up for accommodations to make things accessible for the rest of the cast and crew, because that's important to me. And because often a dramaturg will work with a director for a period of time before you get into the rehearsal room, and so I can kind of sow those seeds so that this space is created in that way going forwards, which I think is important. But yeah, that's kind of all I have on that. But I believe there are dramaturgy programs, like you can study at places. But yeah, that would be my best bet. Just get yourself into rooms, talk to directors, and learn theater history, learn film history, learn about that kind of stuff. Consume as much theater as possible, whether that is through in person or through slime tutorials you find on the internet. Consume all of it, learn all of it, and you'll start to see how things transfer to other things. I think the most enlightening information for me from all of my research has been how much creative teams from shows are the same as other shows. This industry is tiny, and honestly seeing those through lines has helped me a lot to understand how tropes happen, how ideas happen, how producers work. Like I understand the industry in a very specific way because of learning all this information. So just soak it up like a sponge and then see where that gets you. Somebody else also asked about careers and arts accessibility, available jobs, freelancing, etc. Same thing as I said for dramaturgy. You're not gonna find a lot of them just like posted places. You occasionally will, but it's very, very rare. It's usually getting to know a director and mentioning that you have a lot of stuff about accessibility, and they may go, hey, next time I do a show, that's actually important to me and I want to include that, and then they might reach out to you and then you might work on that project, right? It's a lot of those kinds of conversations. Yeah, it's mostly freelancing. Like, sometimes I'll go to colleges to give talks about accessible arts education. That's also super freelancy. That's just whoever emails me and I'm free, and then I say yes, and then I go if I get paid a livable wage. So like it's just very much that. I wish that it were more solid. There are like internships for various things that exist, I believe. And like there are programs, right? That like if there's a dance company that focuses on disability that you really like, see if they have any jobs available, and if they don't, send them an email. So find places that you want to be a part of and then figure out how to be a part of them is kind of my best advice for you. Sorry, that wasn't like the most helpful, but hopefully it was kind of helpful. Advice on creating your own routine as an autistic person when you are no longer in school or otherwise structure. Pretend you're in a structure. Structure your life as if you are an instructor. So I go to, I was gonna say I don't do this, but I go to the gym every morning at 8 o'clock. Make that a routine. Stick to it. That's now your routine. You have to follow through. Also tie it into what your school schedule used to look like, because your body's kind of used to that, and then you can shift it. So like when I first moved here, I, would wake up at the same time I used to wake up in college, and then I would like work for the same period of time. I'd have lunch at the same period of time, and then I'd work for another period of time, and then I would go out and do things in the evenings, and then I slowly morphed that to kind of fit the life that I currently live. So just kind of play around with it. That also wasn't a super helpful answer. I'm so sorry. We're almost done. As a disabled actor, how do I start conversations about how I play a character's disability? It's kind of the elephant in the rehearsal room right now. That's such a good question, and my answer is going to be woefully unhelpful. Just start talking about it. Literally just be like, hey, so I'm thinking of coming at this character from this angle because of this in regards to my disability. What do you think about that? Or would you prefer that I portray it in this way or that I portray it in this way? What do you think about this, X, Y, and Z? If you're really worried about it, you can schedule a time to meet with the director and talk to the director separately before you bring it into the rehearsal room. But I would literally just start talking about it, and everybody else is going to get over it themselves, because they're not going to... I guarantee you everybody in the room is processing disability, but they are afraid to say something about it because they don't know if that's okay or not. So you're going to have to be the one to address the elephant in the room and say, hey, this is a situation that's happening. How can we figure this out to work in the way that we want it to for this show? You're going to need to start that conversation, which sucks, but they're not going to open that conversation because they don't want to. And also if you're in a professional setting, that could become sketchy in regards to equity, equality, things that you're allowed to be saying. So you're gonna need to start the conversation yourself. Just take a deep breath and just say what you're thinking, when it fits in, and just get that ball rolling. Yeah. Somebody else also asked about how highly mentally disabled people should advocate. And really same advice as the previous one. Just, sit down with what you want to be advocating about and sort it, and sort how you want to be treated, how you want to treat others, and what you want and what your goals are, and then just start talking. There's no better way. I mean, trial by fire maybe isn't always the best move, but it also kind of is in a lot of situations, particularly when it comes to advocacy. Especially if you've been like paying attention to other advocates for a while and see what methods work and what don't work. You really just have to say, all right, this is a thing that I'm going to do, and just go and do it. Because unfortunately we're in a world where nobody's going to create that space for you to do that. So you just got to do it. And I know that it's hard. I know we talk a lot about anxiety levels are very high. Everybody kind of forgot how to socialize after the pandemic and all these things. And I think accessibility in regards to anxiety and those kinds of things is really important. I think it's really crucial. I think it's great that we should be talking about that, but I also am gonna be super realistic and say that is a muscle. Anxiety is social skills, and being able to do scary things is a muscle. That's the reason I'm doing however many scary things a week, is because once I am doing these all the time, they're not going to feel scary anymore. They're just going to be normal, and then my tolerance is going to get higher, and then I can do even scarier things after that. What those are, not a clue. Haven't figured that out yet, but it is a muscle, and it's something you have to exercise and really just start doing, even though it sucks, even though it's scary, because it's going to stop being scary at some point, and you're going to get the things that you need and the things that you want, and that is important, and that is what you need and what you deserve. So just start doing it, start advocating, and everything else will come. The other thing I would say is when it comes to advocacy work, when you set boundaries, make sure that you're following them. Don't just be like, this is a thing that I'm gonna do, or this is the way that I want to be treated, and then somebody starts treating you differently and then you just accept it. That's not super great. You really want to set that boundary and you want to stick by it, because that's how you're gonna be the most effective, and they're gonna trust your word on things. So again, hard, anxiety, however, it's a muscle. Work with it, figure it out, you can do it, I believe in you. The last question, I saved to the end because it was my favorite one, and I hate that I don't have a very good answer for this. The last question was, what is something you really wanted to be true, but after research it got debunked? The thing with this question is that this happens to me all the time, and I'm so glad that somebody asked about it. Happens to me literally all the time. I will find something and be like, oh my god, this is so cool, and then I will start to research it more thoroughly, and then I will completely debunk my own thought, and it's very upsetting. I can't think of any specifics right now, unfortunately, because I will usually start typing the thing to my friend and then pause and fact check and then be upset. So it's not like I have a record of it anywhere. But sometimes I think that I find like pieces that connect something to something else, like a timeline, and I'm like, oh, this is really good, and then it's not actually the same year or something like that. That's always upsetting. I found a photo the other day of Helen Keller, what I thought was Helen Keller, at a very specific historical suffragist parade or protest that is a very important event in history to me, and I thought it was a photo of her because it came up in the documentary I was watching as if it was a photo of her, and then I did a face. Now I pulled up the original image and there was no information, so then I pulled up an image of her, a couple images of her, and then I compared to each person in the picture, and it just wasn't her. That was very upsetting. I wish that she was at that protest. That would have meant a lot to me. I mean, she was at other stuff's protest, so she was still super cool, and it still means a lot to me, but I know specifically that moment I was kind of upset. So yeah, that's one. That's kind of it, really, that I can think of in this moment, but that does happen to me literally all the time. If I come up with more, I will totally drop them into the comments, because yes, that is the plight of being a researcher. Anyway, those are all of your questions. I think, unless I missed one, and if I did, I'm sorry. But I hope that this was interesting or helpful or just fun to like hang out a little bit. I don't know. I'm not really doing personal stuff online very much. It's probably the last one you're gonna get for quite some time in this genre. But I hope that it was a good time. If you have any other questions, you can drop them into the comments. I will respond when I get around to it. I literally open YouTube maybe twice a month. Like, I only open my social media apps to send dog reels to my friends and to post things. If it's not on auto post, which many of my posts are, it's just my reels and TikToks that are not on auto post. And then I only open YouTube when I'm uploading a new video, which happens usually in one chunk at the beginning of the month, and then I don't touch it again. It's been so wonderful for my mental health. I cannot express to you how wonderful it has been for my mental health to unplug from things and to be busy. But it does mean that I'm just not on media at all, ever. So yeah, I'll respond when I get around to it if I see them. Yeah, so that's all I got for you. But thank you for being here. Thank you especially to people who've been here for a long time, because I appreciate it. I've grown a lot over the last however many years that I've been doing this. It's probably like 3 or 4 maybe now. Gosh, grown a lot. Like, wow. Yeah, it's been a journey being here on Ye Olde Internet, and I'm so glad to have you, and I'm so glad to have everybody who is new here as well. Thanks for joining me, and I hope that you'll hang around at least for a bit. We have a fun time around here. We learn really, really random things, like really very, very, very random things. Yeah, amazing. Okay, I don't know how to close out a video when I'm not scripting it. What do I always say? Oh, as always, thank you for listening. Thank you for learning. Remember, never too late to start over, and critical thinking is really sexy. I look forward to seeing you, my dear, in the next one.